accidentally went down there.
We light this candle in honor of Judaism. We shall beat our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. But shall sit every one under our vine and under our fig tree, and none shall make us afraid. We light this candle in honor of Confucianism. The ancients who wished to illustrate illustrious virtue throughout the kingdom first ordered well their own states. Wishing to order well their own states, they first regulated their families. Wishing to regulate their families, they first cultivated their persons. Wishing to cultivate their persons, they first rectified their hearts. Wishing to rectify their hearts, they first sought to be sincere in their thoughts. We light this candle in honor of Buddhism when we realize that the world is a mutual, interdependent, cooperative enterprise, that human beings are all mutual friends in the process of birth, suffering, old age, and death. Then we can build a noble, even a heavenly environment. We light this candle in honor of Islam. Cloak yourself in 1,000 ways, and I shall still know you, my beloved. Veil yourself with every enchantment, and yet I shall feel your presence, most dear, close and intimate. I find your face in the ivy that climbs, in clusters of grapes, in morning sun on the mountains, in the clear arch of the sky. You gladden the whole earth and make every heart great. You are the breathing of the world. We light this candle in honor of Christianity. This is the message that ye heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. Let us not love only in word nor in tongue, but in deed and in truth. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear. We light this candle in honor of Taoism. Returning to the source is serenity. If you don't realize the source, you stumble in confusion and sorrow. When you realize where you come from, you naturally become tolerant, disinterested, amused, kind-hearted as a grandmother, and dignified as a king. We light this final candle in honor of the first people. O Great Spirit, whose voice I hear in the winds, I ask for wisdom and strength, not to be superior to my brothers, but to be able to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make my hands respect the things you have made, and make my ears sharp so that I might hear your voice.
Today's reading is from Ernest Holmes, Open, Receptive, and Welcoming. Ultimately, we shall see that the universe rests on the shoulders of love, that God is love. and that all the errors of man are the result of ignorance of his own true nature. The happy outlook on life is always constructive. The understanding heart is always filled with sympathy and helpfulness toward all. An evolved soul judges no one, condemns no one, but realizes that all are on the road of experience, seeking the same goal, and that each must ultimately find his home in heaven. Let's take these words into the silence. So I know today is a day of oneness. I know that everything about this service proclaims oneness. Every note played, every word spoken, everything that is unfolding in this center is God expressing, God unfolding. And so I know that right where we are remembering our true God nature, that we are centered in love, we are centered in joy, that we are part of this one mind that is everywhere present. And together we say, and so it is.
So the other day I was visiting a friend, and she introduced me to her daughter and said, "This is the one who does all the yak, yak, yak at church." So now I get to do the yak, yak for a minute. Just to remind you, many of you know that this whole year we're looking at our global vision, which is a vision that's shared by all centers for spiritual living around the world. And the short version is up on the wall. We envision a world that works for everyone. And obviously there's a whole lot more to that vision. There's lots of paragraphs that follow that idea by idea, we look at what we've set forth as an organization, trying to figure out what a world that works for everyone would look like. And so each week throughout the whole year, we're taking a little slice of that vision. And the slice for today is this. We see our communities as being open, receptive, and welcoming of all people, all faiths, and all paths to God. We consciously choose to be a community where all people are welcome, whether they're Christian, Jewish, agnostic, or Muslim, whether they are into tarot cards or Texas Hold'em, whether they work with a hammer or a stethoscope or a violin, whether they love a person of their own gender or another gender or more than one person. This is our conscious choice as a community to be a place of welcome for everybody. And we take this stand because at the very core of our teaching is the idea that's been repeated a couple of times, the truth of oneness, that there's only one, that you are me and I am you and we are one. And this conscious choice requires of each of us some pretty serious spiritual practice. It requires some pretty significant practice to create enough space in ourselves to accept and welcome people who aren't like us. Because for every single one of us, there are people who are easy, no problem to get along with, and there are people who aren't. There are people who are difficult. And when we run into difficult people, there's a part of us, it's a biological part that's been bolstered by things in society. There's a part of us that wants to make them the other than we are, different, separate, because their skin is a different color, or their sexual orientation is different, or their attitude is not like ours, or their education is not like ours. Whatever it is, we pick up to make someone else other. And our stories about others are buried deep, deep, deep in our collective consciousness. Things we learned before we knew we were even learning them, right?
Things like, don't trust anybody who's of a different ethnic group. I grew up in Utah. We have very few African Americans and a lot of Mexicans. And so there, the jokes were about Mexicans. And you'd see people grab their purse straps when they were walking past a Mexican person on the sidewalk, stuff like that. And when I moved to Florida in my late teens, I saw the same behavior towards African Americans. And now we're seeing it towards Muslims in some places. Why does this happen? Why does this happen? Why do we make a group of people the other? And the reason, I think, is because we grow up in this stew of unconscious and archaic thinking that instills in us the idea, the notion, that people who aren't like us are to be feared or stayed away from, at least. And that's the same stew that says women aren't as strong as men, that girls don't do as well in math as boys, that big boys don't cry, that for a man to show emotion is weak, all that kind of stuff. It's the same stew. And what we choose to do here is to start to become conscious about the unconscious stuff we're carrying around and using to judge the world. We're trying to become conscious because we're beginning to understand that to make someone the other is lying to ourselves, because there is no other. There is no other. We begin to understand that it's not our fault we have these biases, but it is our responsibility to ferret them out and change them. It's not our fault because we were born into the stew. We grew up in the stew, and now it's time for us to get a new recipe, right? Clean the pot and start over with some healthier ideas. And that isn't an easy thing. That isn't an easy task to do. Learning to see our own blind spots requires a certain kind of agility that we have to learn and we have to practice. In the abstract, it's easy. Oh yeah, I love everybody. I'm just, good with everybody. We might even go so far as to have lunch with everybody. But it's the person in the next cubicle, or the one who's dating my daughter, or the one who is on the bus next to us in the seat next to us. That's when it gets difficult. It's the one-on-one particular where it's sometimes hard to open our hearts. And I'll share another personal story because those are the ones I know best. When I grew up in a home where I don't think anybody was not welcome. My parents were hospitable to all kinds of people, and that was just the normal. And we took some heat for it, individually and as a family. There was a terrible, terrible car accident in the canyon near my little town, and the parents were both in the hospital for a very long time. And there was a 7-year-old girl who wasn't. She was hardly hurt. And so my parents brought her to live with us while she waited for her parents to heal up enough to get out of the hospital. This little girl was black, and I had some neighbors who didn't think that that was okay, that she lived with us. So I learned to stand up to racist bullies at a very early age, because I was 7 at the time too. We had Vista volunteers of all races and skin colors and ethnic backgrounds from all over the country. We had foster kids. All these people lived in our home for varying lengths of time. My mother marched in the Pride Day parade. We were about as accepting as we could be, or so I thought. Nearly 30 years ago, 2 more months, it'll be 30 years, I got struck sober, and that's how it felt. I got struck sober. And one of the people who helped me recover the most was a wonderful woman who happened to be a lesbian. She was the first person I ever experienced who took absolute delight in my presence without any changes required. You know what I mean? In her eyes, I was whole and perfect and complete, and she accepted me as I was and helped me sort of knit my alcohol-rattled psyche back together. She was my best friend and my lifeline. And to my utter surprise, my father was fine with lesbians and gays as long as one of his kids didn't get too close to any of them. I was completely shocked to my core when I found out he was talking to my sister about me, not to my face, but to one, and then he would treat Brooke rudely and coldly. My father, the guy who reached a hand out to anybody who seemed not to have a biased bone in his body, just blew me away. I could not even believe it. And it was hard for me anyway, because that was probably the first time, I mean, I'd always had gay friends, but this was kind of like the first time I was up against my own unconscious homophobia. And between that and Dad, I just shut down. I just like what is going on here? What the heck is happening here? It took a long, long time to look past the hurt and anger at the inner bigotry that was going on, and to try and call it out, and to understand that Dad acted like we all act when we're not conscious of what we're not conscious of. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, urged us to take that moment, that moment where we want to pull away or step aside or judge or pigeonhole. We take that moment to shift from the personal to the universal. He said the thing to do is not try to unify with people, but with the principle of life behind all people. This takes us right to the heart of our teaching, which is we're one with everything, everyone, everything. And from that place, we can open our hearts to see a bigger reality, to shift into a place of love for anybody and everybody. So I had to shift into a place of love for my dad. I had to stop and say, how can I love this guy who's just totally, what's going on here? His integrity had been called into question for me. And to come from love, yet I had to stay alert and awake to what was happening in me as well. And I had to see how my own intrinsic, unconscious things played out. Like, if somebody told the last sort of ethnic jokes, if you will, to go were jokes about gays and lesbians. So when somebody told a joke like that, did I stand up and say that's not okay with me? Did I stand up and say, you can't disrespect that person for this reason in my presence? I had to shift into this place of love. And the same thing happened many, many years later, unfortunately, way too many years later, when I started to learn about the privileges that I have that I didn't earn, I just have, because of who my parents were. I had to stop and ask myself, how do I stand in the world about this stuff? Do I stand up for people who get put down because of any characteristic they might have been born with? Do I let people know that it's not okay with me to be disrespectful of somebody because of their skin color or gender or religion or any other thing? For me, this has been true, and I've had to explore whether, people with disabilities, people who grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, as we used to say, people who are different in any way than I am. How do I stand in the world in behalf of people who aren't like me? And of course, then there's another question, harder question that comes up. How do I handle the groups of people that are othering and judging? Do they get off in their own special category? I'm not going to judge you, you judgmental SO, you know what, but, we do that too, right? The circles just keep coming. I have to learn to welcome and respect and receive warmly the otherers as well. I can't judge them because their inherent learned biases aren't the same as mine. And this is where it gets, I think, really difficult. But the circle of questions just keeps expanding for us. How do I stand in the world? How do we stand as we move from our personal stories into our community stories, into the stories about our city and our country and our world? We have the opportunity to stand for welcoming, to stand for hospitality, to stand for love. We have the opportunity to speak up when we see injustice and inequity and judgment. We get to be the change we want to see in the world. That's what we get to do. I know there are some of you who have relatives who've accused you of joining a cult because you come here. I know, because I've gotten calls from some of those people. And I've tried to explain to them that a cult teaches you what to think, and we're about the furthest you could get away from that. We have some suggestions as to how you might think, not what, but how, a style of thinking that will make your life happier and freer and fuller. But as far as what to think, no. There are those who have closed their hearts to their family members because they believe theirs is the only way. See, we have to be the change we want to see in the world and not believe that ours is the only way, and not close our hearts against the ones who think that theirs is the only way. And that's not easy. Our job is to never stop seeing the light of God within everybody. Even those people who tell us we're going to go to hell in a handbasket. It's up to us to keep our hearts open, even when others' hearts are closed. And that's a pretty radical position in our world, isn't it? It's a pretty radical position, but it's the only one that'll change things. The other night, Senator Cory Booker said something that just, whoa, I just loved it. He said, we don't always have to agree, but we must empower each other. We must find the common ground, he said. We must build bridges across our differences to pursue the common good. And then he talked about the difference between tolerance and welcoming. We can't devolve into a nation, he said, where our highest aspiration is to just tolerate each other. We are not called to be a nation of tolerance. We are called to be a nation of love. Big difference. Tolerance says, I'm going to stomach your right to be different. That if you disappear from the face of the earth, I am no better or worse off. But love knows that every one of us has worth and value, no matter what their background, their race, their religion, their sexual orientation. Love recognizes we need each other. And it so moved me because it's so true. You know, when we open ourselves to see that divine light within each other, we realize that everybody who crosses our path is a gift to us. Everybody who crosses our path can show us those things in our subconscious mind that we can't see any other way. Everybody who crosses our path is either giving us love or teaching us how to extend love in a greater way. We need each other. We do. See, that kind of love is what we as a community are about looking beyond the differences to the divine within each one of us and loving that divinity. Not just tolerating the package it comes in, but loving that divinity. We're about opening our arms to each other, our hearts to each other, regardless of what we look like or love like or vote like. We come together so that we can remember how to do these big things, how to change our thinking and thus our beliefs, how to live an open-hearted life, how to remain in love and be welcoming, not just tolerant, how to love each other more fully and better, how to bind the wounds that divide us from each other and that divide our country and that divide our world. So I'm going to close with something else that I saw last week that from former Senator Tom Harkin. He did this beautiful little tiny speech and he signed as he spoke. And he taught everyone the sign for united, which is also the sign for our country. Put your fingers together like this, and then move your hands in a circle in front of your body. That's the symbol in sign language for united. We are all together. We are all together, and no one is left out in this circle of life. That's what we in this room want to represent in the world. A place where no one is left out. A place where everyone is welcomed and received with love, not just tolerance, and where we walk this path of life together in love. So join me right now in consciousness of love. Allow your awareness to find that place within you that is always filled with love, that is always filled with peace, that understands seeing behind the judgment, the illusion, the prejudice, the bias. Whether we look in the mirror or at our neighbor, this place, this spark of peace, is the place that the divine lives within each one of us. It is the origin of that voice of guidance and wisdom that whispers in our ear saying, "You are my beloved." That whispers in our ear saying, "You are one with me and all that is." That gently guides us to uncover more, to stand more squarely in our own truth, to step out boldly in love, knitting up as we go the wounds that we have left between other people, in our relationship with ourselves, between us and the world. And it is this spark of divine life, this place of oneness with everything that exists, that is the source of the power that allows us to do just that. It is the source of love. It is the fountainhead of life. And when we can just lean into it and rest, we know that we are one, that I am you and you are me, and we are one. And knowing this is the truth of each one of us, I know that this community simply continues to more boldly welcome and love everyone who walks in the door, and that we as individual members of this community more boldly welcome and love those in our lives, whether they are the driver in the car next door, the person in the next cubicle, or our neighbor who is completely opposite from what we are. Yet we love them anyway. We show that love in our thoughts, in our words, in our deeds. We simply let go of judgment. We simply let go of othering. We simply recognize that truly we need each other, and that we are all in this together, so that our community's light burns more brightly, as our individual lights burn more brightly as well. How grateful I am for this time we have together to celebrate oneness, to love life, to welcome each other into each other's hearts. How grateful I am for life itself, this amazing adventure of spiritual beings in human form. So in deep gratitude, I simply release all of these words, knowing that the universe has already said yes to us. Our eternal, infinite support that always says yes to us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mother, Father, Infinite Spirit, God, Great Spirit, all 10,000 names speaking of the same love. Thank you, God. And we say together, and so it is.
I'm just a thread, a simple thread in this glorious web of life. We are all just drops within a stream flowing towards an ocean of light. We may forget where we come from, we may forget where we're going to. I might not see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. I am just a seed, a a blessed seed with eternity unfolding in me. And I pray that as I grow, I will reveal the love that illuminates my soul. When I remember where I come from, when I remember where I'm going to, then I will see that you're a reflection of me, as much as I'm a reflection of you. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one.
Amen. We now have an opportunity to give in support of the work of our community. Giving is the thing that puts us in touch with that abundant flow of life that arises within us, and gratitude is the thing that opens it up more fully. So I invite you into a moment of gratitude. Just call to mind something you're so grateful for. Your family, your home, your friends, yourself. Let yourself be filled up with gratitude. And repeat after me. My heart is open.
My heart is open.
I give from my open heart.
I give from my open heart.
I know that as I give, I am given to.
I know that as I give, I am given to.
And I am grateful.
And I am grateful.
And so it is. That was fabulous, Kyle. See, that's what I love about this band, is like they find all the rock and roll mystics that ever existed. We get to hear their songs. It's the best. That was wonderful. So a couple of quick announcements. Our anniversary celebration is coming up in about 8 weeks, and it's going to be awesome. On Saturday the 24th, our licensed practitioners will offer a spiritual Saturday. You can bring your pets in for a pet blessing. You can walk a modified labyrinth. You can come and learn affirmations or create a vision board, or all kinds of things. It's going to be, there'll be all sorts of stuff. And then that's on Saturday the 24th in the afternoon. And then on Sunday the 25th, our movements, our organization spiritual leader, Reverend Dr. Ken Gordon, will be with us. He will speak at our Sunday service and then join us for brunch. We do need an RSVP for the brunch. So there's a postcard over on the Welcome Center if you didn't receive one in the mail that tells you how to RSVP. We just need to make sure we've got a seat for you and enough food to feed you. So you can pick up a postcard over at the Welcome Center, or you can call the office Monday through Thursday. The number's on the back of your bulletin. Today, you can still get tickets to the Dayton Dragons game on August 14th. The tickets are just $13 and you get an $18 hat. So, you know, you can't lose. If you want to sign up, please see Kelly O'Keefe, who will be over by the Welcome Center collecting money after the service. We have to have the count-in tomorrow, so today's the day to sign up. There's Gary.
Yes,
You wanted to say a couple words, and you promised that you wouldn't throw anything. So Gary Victor has a couple of words, sans missiles, about a fun event that's coming up today. Uh-oh. He's throwing things.
All right. So,
Right into the pond.
here's the scoop, guys. At 1 o'clock today, you're all invited for miniature golf. So the weather's going to be nice. We might have a couple scattered showers and thunder showers. But at 1 o'clock at the Trails Miniature Golf Course, which is off East David Road in Display Lane, which is 5 minutes from here, we are having the opportunity to play miniature golf. And there is a cash prize for the first person that hits a hole-in-one. So I won't tell you how much that is, but it's nice. We got a special $5 group rate. We need 10, so if we get 10 or more, that would be great. So see me if you're interested. That will be 1 o'clock today, and I will be over there. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary. Did you gather up? You did. Oh, he's gonna try it now. Oh, right to the hole-in-one. It literally is right around the corner on David. So, the last page of the bulletin insert, Hot Summer Fun, has a lot of information on what's coming up around here. I just want to draw your attention. Thank you. Draw your attention, if you're a female, to this coming Saturday. Reverend Cynthia James will be here for her workshop for women. The price of admission is simply the purchase of her newest book, which is available in the bookstore. It's really climbing the whatever you call that at Amazon. It's selling quite well. It's a good book. She will also be speaking next Sunday here at service, and she rocks. So don't miss her. Please join us for food and fellowship in the Consciousness Cafe right after the service. It's just down the hall to your left. Take home some Dorothy Lane bread and have some birthday cake. Happy birthday to our July babies. Scott Dysinger, Anita France, Pamela Butts, Isabel Espinoza, Mark Fowler, Ethan Eberlin, Karen Musain, Keith Gunter Klein, Tavion Wooten, Braxton Moorhead, Harry Brining, Michelle Howler, who is in India at the moment, Peggy Merritt, Rhea Colette, Becky O'Hara Victor, and Harold Neeland. I hope we didn't miss anybody. Happy birthday to all you July babies. There is birthday cake. Did I miss somebody? No, good. There's birthday cake in the social hall. If you're planning to stay for the Find Out More class, frankly, I forgot all about lunch, so please go grab a snack in the social hall. I owe you one, please forgive me. And I will see you in the adult classroom at noon. If there's some area in your life where you could use a little prayer support, and that's true for all of us most of the time, I think, after the service, just walk up to any of the practitioners wearing a stole or not. I think a couple of them don't have them. Would all the practitioners who are available for prayer just stand? And then she's in the back there, and Marty's in the back. Good, thank you all. Thank you very much. Any of them are available for what we call a 1-minute miracle. They will take you off into a little bit more isolated area and pray for you. If you're having a really difficult challenge, you might want to consider making an appointment for a full session with one of these practitioners. Your life will change. Speaking of prayer, you should know that every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, a group gathers in the very last room at the end of the hall, gathers at 9 o'clock in the morning to pray together just before the 9:30 discussion group begins. So you can join them Sundays at 9 a.m. You can also join the discussion. It's a walk-in. You're welcome there. 9:30 discussion. So with that, thanks to everybody who made this morning's service possible. Ushers and greeters, practitioners, welcome team, the Consciousness Cafe team, the Higher Mind Band. Y'all are awesome. And all of you, thank you, thank you. So let's stand for our closing affirmation, our closing song, which is Holy Ground, I believe. Is it not?
Yes.
Good. All right. You all know that one. So please repeat after me. I open my heart.
I open my heart
To embrace the divinity.
to embrace the divinity
Of each person I meet.
of each person I meet.
I know that we are one.
I know that we are one,
And so it is.
and so it is.
Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Days coming up.